Gigi Berardi reading FoodWISE. And this section I'm reading begins with efficiencies in support industries, processing, and marketing. So I'm going to read a few paragraphs from it. And then I thought it would be fun perhaps to talk about my food supply chain, since I've been talking so much about keeping farmers in business and making comments about international trade. Make a few comments about my own food supply chain these days, my thinking about it, and then the thumbnail for this video is cheese that I made today, which is part of my food supply chain. Efficiencies in support industries, processing, and marketing. The consolidation and increase in size we see in farms is mirrored in the transport, distribution, retail, and marketing sectors of the agricultural web. For example, Kroger is the biggest supermarket chain in the world, operating under brands such as Ralph's, Dillon's, King Soopers, and Fred Meyer. With $105 billion in sales at the time of writing. Second is Albertsons, with regional chains such as Safeway and Tom Thumb, and $57 billion in sales. Kroger is also the second largest overall retailer in the world, well behind number one, Walmart, itself a major food store with $375 billion in total sales in 2017. Walmart's influence is great. See an informative 2007 article published in Journal of Private Enterprise on Walmart's influence on local employment. And I may not have made a sufficiently big enough point about this, but I do not have references in this text itself. They are hidden references which appear at the end, hundreds and hundreds of references, many of which are academic. The writing and the tone and my intent is not academic, if you will, but the references, the sources certainly are. Most of them are. And they're in the back of the book. So that's where you would find this article that I mentioned in the Journal of Private Enterprise. Big farms and agribusinesses could certainly dominate food sales and support services. Mega agribusiness companies such as Cargill, Nestle, Monsanto, Bayer, Conagra, and Archer Daniels Midland work hard to corner specialty markets while mass-producing consumer products at low prices to outcompete others in those markets. A case in point is Chicken McNuggets from McDonald's, part of the industrial meat complex, discussed later. Our industrial scale meat production is itself made possible by the mega scale growing of soybeans, mainly in the United States, Brazil, and Argentina. Soybean meal accounts for 75% of protein in compounded livestock feeds worldwide. Soy meal is the main source because of its high crude protein content and balanced amino acids, and dominates especially in Europe, where meat and bone meal are banned in feeds. As fast food chains compete with low prices to sell burgers and chicken, they press their meat suppliers for lower prices. These meat processors in turn press the farmers for lower prices. Economies of scale through growth and consolidation result at every stage. Big poultry integrators like Tyson and Perdue manage all aspects of chicken production. They are vertically integrated from breeding to marketing. They contract out production from egg to broiler-sized chicken to a network of farms, now mostly in the American South, that are constantly pressured to do business more cheaply. This industry-wide drive for efficiency does give us fatter, plumper chickens that grow faster and a food that is cheap. Enter Chicken McNuggets. McDonald's McNuggets were a creative meat alternative to corn-fed beef, addressing media-driven health concerns about red meat and fat, as well as consumer demand for cheap food. McDonald's mechanically separated chicken meat, shaped into bite-sized pieces, breaded, deep-fried, frozen, reheated, and served with processed dipping sauces, entered the world of fast food in 1983. What it isn't is whole. It is a highly processed product that bears little resemblance to the chicken that people ate even a few decades ago. But this iconic fast food certainly has done well. McDonald's rapidly became the world's second largest seller of chicken. Efficiencies in raising chickens have led to what can only be called factory farms, animals confined under strictly controlled conditions. Large numbers of animals confined under strictly controlled conditions. In fact, it was my concerns about factory farming in England while I was a student there in 1974 that originally set me on my path of studying food. I remember those days well. So my food chain, what does my food chain look like? Vast when I drink coffee, but pretty short when I'm drinking my own milk from my sheep. But that only happens in March or so through a part of September. Then where in the year I buy organic milk from a reliable cooperative, and my fruit, I do eat bananas. Of course, I talk in the book, I have references in the book to why eating bananas isn't so bad in terms of carbon emissions, but nevertheless, fair trade bananas, but they come from elsewhere, and I am in the Pacific Northwest. And apples, and many times it's our own apples. We have 4 or 5 or 6 different varieties, but I am quite fond of a variety that comes from elsewhere in Washington State. And oatmeal, and sometimes I get grains that are locally produced, but sometimes they're commercial organic oatmeal that we cook, and or not organic, and then my lunch and dinner tends to be pretty vegetable heavy, and that is using regional food chains. And then the protein is oftentimes our own. It's cheese. So even though I can't have the fluid milk, I've made cheese, and I made cheese today, and also our own lamb. If I eat beans, they can be from regional food chains, and sometimes I do purchase them like that, but not always. And then sometimes all of this food, depending on the season, the time of year, or some of it we're providing. So for example, the fresh vegetables. But I do make cheese. I milk sheep every day, and I make cheese. And as I mentioned, the thumbnail for this video shows cheese that I just took out of the brine today. And that cheese is extremely dense in nutrients, especially protein, fat, and calcium. And so I don't need to eat a whole lot of it to get well close to my daily supply of those nutrients. And to me, that is FoodWISE.